everyone hears this story. You know, it's a little, you can pull it up on YouTube. Go on YouTube, type in story of farmer and good and bad, and there's going to be like 3, 4, 5 videos that have like their own animated versions of it. So it's like this story, and it's not just like a farmer and good or bad. There's like a bunch of different ways it's told, where it's not a farmer, it's something else or another, or it's a dragon. And, you know, it's like this same idea has been portrayed all throughout the different cultures, just differently. And so it's like, this is an archetype that's being presented to us in a myth. And if you can see that it's more than a story about a farmer, his son, and his horses, that it's about how we ourselves will live like that and constantly be like, oh, that sucks, or oh, that's awesome. Like we just like hear things and we just quick judgment, like, oh, that's a bad thing. Oh, that's a good thing. And that we're not supposed to do that, that we should try our best to avoid that at all costs, because you have no idea like what you're doing when you're like attaching these ideas to something that is beyond that. You know, like imagine you're talking to somebody and they're telling you something, and before they're even done telling their story, they're like, oh, you're like, oh, damn, that must have sucked. Or, you know, you're like,
project.
Yeah, you end up projecting every time you do that, you know, instead of just listening or just, you know, allowing the story to take place. You're like almost like doing like this confirmation bias of like attaching shallow judgments to it.
Yeah, and you can alter their own opinions about the situation, and then therefore alter their futures and or your own future or limit the future possibilities by choosing a side instead of being open to both. And so, yeah, it's just going with the energies, allowing them to happen naturally as they do. You may not understand why they're happening or what exactly is happening, but you just have to trust in the process. And yeah, I feel like mantras definitely help. Like whenever you maybe you are experiencing a bad way of thinking, and then you can bring yourself back to awareness by saying a mantra. And so like number one thing for me is that I don't feel safe. Like I've had a lot of trauma in my past to where in situations I don't feel like I can be fully vulnerable. And so I'll like limit my ways of being in a situation because I have that unconscious fear like embedded in me. And so like a mantra that I say to myself is, I'm safe. I'm safe. I'm protected. And just saying that allows that to be a possibility when before it wasn't. So.
Yeah. I notice it a lot with like being late. I feel like if you end up being late, you can make it way worse by stressing yourself out and giving yourself like a bunch of anxiety, because then the next thing you know, you'll be speeding and you'll be making bad decisions on the road. And it's like, you can't change the fact that you're going to be late. And so sometimes there's like a funny one that a lot of people refer to as like the one, you brought him up earlier this weekend, but Gandalf, one of his famous quotes in The Lord of the Rings is he says, magician is never late. He arrives precisely when he means to. And it's just like this idea that in general, none of us are ever really late. It's like, if you're late, it's for a reason. And, that can like irk me sometimes, because sometimes it's like, no, gotta be on fucking time. And I try my best to be on time. But if I'm not on time, I'm trying to be very careful of like, don't make a bunch of bad decisions trying to undo something that has already happened. And so my mantra is like, when something is going wrong, I'm like, why did this happen? I like, trust the universe. Trust the universe. It's going to be okay. Stay focused, get where you need to be. But don't start running red lights. Don't run stop signs. Don't start cutting people off, because that's how the good and bad becomes worse, is when you start, it's like, I'm late. And then the next thing you know, because you're attaching like all this negativity to it, you are way more likely to make more decisions. It's like, you can be late, still drive safe, get there when you mean to, apologize, do whatever. Or you could be anxious the whole time, be speeding, and be pulled over by a cop. And then it gets 10 times worse. Like, there's nothing worse than being late and then being pulled over. Then you're like, so it's like, don't make things worse. Like, yeah, say the mantra, do what you got to do so that I feel like when you accept that whatever has happened is the way it is, and to just like go with it and try to make the best out of it, that you're going to, like you said, open the possibilities of what the future can lead to. And I kind of just explained how by attaching a negative emotion to it, how things can spiral out of control really quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's just with everything, like slowing down in life, because life can push you to move so quickly. And just the way that you're walking, the way that you're talking, like there's no need to rush. And I feel like it stems from probably like whenever we had to survive and we needed to make decisions really quick in the wild. Maybe that's some type of encoded thing that we have this sense of urgency all the time. But if you really slow down and focus on your breath, focus on your thoughts, focus on your actions, and choose the reality that you want to live, can change your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much got everything that I wrote down. I did want to like give you a couple practical insights of like, how can you utilize this gene key like right now to essentially enhance your life? One of them is a deep listening practice. Essentially, like try to get better at listening to people. And how can you get better at listening to people? One, you can actively listen. That is a huge thing. It's like just because you're hearing somebody does not mean you're listening to them. Like one of my biggest things is if I'm talking to you and you start looking at your phone or you start doing other things, I'm just like, I'm done talking to you then. I'm not putting any effort into this conversation because you're not putting effort in the conversation. And people will be like, oh, well, I hear what you're saying. And it's like, no, you don't. My words are passing into your ear, but that doesn't mean you're actually listening. And what I mean by that is when you meet a true leader, it's like when you walk into their office, you're the only person in the room. And a bad leader, they'll keep typing on their computer. And they'll be like, oh, yeah. And then I'm telling you, the level of answers that you can get from someone that is one typing on a computer or one actually like looking at you and pretending like they care about what you say is completely different. The way that they make you feel is completely different. And so I know so many people that have this horrible habit of literally looking at their phone and answering text messages while they're listening to you talk. And I mean, it is what it is. I try not to take it personal because we're all addicted to the phone. So I just let it be. But that lets me know like the level of awareness someone is at. It's like, yeah, sure. Maybe, I'm not saying that they don't have a high level of awareness, but I understand that their level of awareness with me is not very high. And it's like, it's going to be hard for me to connect to you if every time it's my turn to speak, you get on your phone. And so again, practicing that ability of deep listening, man, that is like one of the key tenets of leadership. So it's like just by learning how to not craft a response every time someone's talking to you, you could literally level up your leadership skills, which is a key tenet of like humanity. It's like your ability to inspire and lead is a huge character trait for anybody and anything that you do. You don't even have to be a leader to have leadership traits. It's like leadership traits are great in a follower. So you don't even I'm not even saying that you got to be leading people, but in order to be a good leader, you got to be a good follower. In order to be a good follower, you got to be a good leader. You got to understand both aspects.
Yeah, I feel like off of that, I feel like people, they get caught up in their minds in thinking of thoughts to respond because they're not confident in their own communication abilities. And that just comes back to like being humble. It's like you don't know where they're going to take the conversation. And if you are confused where they took the conversation, you can just simply ask them questions. Like you don't have to know exactly what they're talking about at all times. You can be like, oh, that's really interesting. Like, what did you mean about this? Like, I have no idea what that means. And they can go further into it and actually put you into the conversation with them, and you can be like a part of the conversation rather than just like, I don't know, have any idea what that dude just said, so I'm just going to say cool.
Or change the subject.
Yeah, or just not even acknowledge it. So it's like, just listen fully. And like something that helped me, I would literally have to like think about each word that they said and like say the words in my mind to like put me on the same page. Because sometimes you're just thinking thoughts in your mind and you're not on the same page. And it takes you a couple seconds to like actually get on the same page. And you're like, okay, wait, 1 second. Wait, what did you just say? And then it's just like being able to communicate exactly where you're at and where they're at.